The wind had begun to rise over the prairie long before midnight, pushing cold air across the open land and rattling the loose boards of the Turner ranch house. Clouds covered the moon, leaving the world outside wrapped in darkness, so thick it seemed to swallow the distant hills. Inside the house, Jacob Turner sat alone at the kitchen table with a lantern burning low beside him. The flame flickered softly, casting long shadows across the rough wooden walls. His hands rested around a mug of coffee that had long since grown cold. The ranch had been quiet for months now, too quiet. Ever since Sarah passed away the year before, the house felt less like a home and more like an empty shell that simply kept out the wind. Every chair seemed to remember her. Every corner carried the echo of her voice. Jacob tried not to think about it too much. A rancher didn't have the luxury of drowning in memories. There were fences to mend, cattle to check, and land to keep alive. Still, nights were the hardest. He stared into the lantern flame when suddenly a sharp knock broke the silence. Jacob looked up. At first he thought he imagined it. No one visited this far out on the prairie, especially not at midnight. Then it came again, knock, knock, knock. 3 quick taps on the front door. Jacob slowly stood. His boots creaked against the floor as he walked toward the door. The wind howled outside, pushing dust against the windows. He opened the door halfway. Standing on the porch was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. Her dark hair was tangled from the wind, and her thin dress clung to her arms as if she had been walking for miles in the cold. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Mister," she whispered, her voice trembling, "Mama needs help." Jacob blinked in surprise. "Where's your mama?" he asked gently. The girl pointed into the darkness beyond the yard, on the road. "She fell from the wagon. She won't wake up." Jacob's heart tightened instantly. He didn't ask another question. "Come inside a moment," he said, but the girl shook her head urgently. "No, please, we have to hurry." Jacob grabbed his hat from the hook by the door and reached for a lantern. Then he paused. One lantern wouldn't be enough. The prairie roads twisted through gullies and fields, and the storm clouds had swallowed every bit of moonlight. Without hesitation, Jacob moved through the house lighting lantern after lantern. 1 for the porch, 2 for the yard posts, another for the fence line. He hung them quickly, one after another, until the entire front of the ranch glowed like a beacon across the dark plains. The little girl watched him with wide eyes. "Why so many lights?" she asked. Jacob picked up 2 lanterns and handed one to her. "So your mama can find her way home." They started down the dirt road together, the lantern flames dancing in the cold wind. The girl walked quickly despite her small legs. "What's your name?" Jacob asked. "Emily," she said. "And your mama?" "Clara." Jacob nodded. "Where are you coming from, Emily?" "From the South Trail. We were trying to reach town." The road stretched ahead in darkness, except for the gentle glow of lantern light from the ranch fading behind them. After several minutes of walking, Emily suddenly pointed. "There." Jacob lifted his lantern higher. A wagon sat crooked beside the road. One wheel had slipped into a shallow ditch, tilting the wagon sideways. Beside it lay a woman. Jacob rushed forward and knelt beside her. She was pale, her breathing shallow. A small cut along her forehead had dried into a dark line of blood. "Clara," Emily whispered, kneeling beside her mother. Jacob gently checked the woman's pulse. "She's alive," he said. Relief flooded the little girl's face. "What happened?" Jacob asked. Emily wiped her eyes. "The horse got scared in the wind. The wagon tipped and Mama fell." Jacob carefully lifted the woman into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, as though weeks of hardship had worn her down. "We'll take her to my house," he said. The walk back felt longer carrying her weight. but the lanterns glowing at the ranch guided them through the darkness like stars fallen to earth. When they reached the porch, Jacob pushed the door open with his shoulder and carried Clara inside. He laid her gently on the small bed in the spare room. Emily hovered beside him anxiously. "Will she wake up?" the girl asked. "I think so," Jacob said softly. "She just needs warmth and rest." He cleaned the wound on Clara's head and wrapped it carefully with cloth. After a while her eyelids fluttered. Emily leaned forward. "Mama." Clara opened her eyes slowly. The first thing she saw was the lantern light flickering across an unfamiliar ceiling. Then she saw Emily's worried face. "Emily," she whispered. "I'm here, Mama." Clara turned her head slightly and noticed Jacob standing near the doorway. "Where are we, my ranch?" Jacob said gently. "Your daughter came for help." Clara closed her eyes for a moment in relief. "Thank you." The storm outside grew stronger as the night deepened. Wind rattled the windows and sent dust skimming across the yard. Jacob placed more firewood in the stove while Emily curled up in a chair beside the bed. Hours passed quietly. By morning, the wind had faded. Golden sunlight spread across the prairie, revealing the lanterns still hanging across the yard like silent guardians of the night. Clara slowly sat up in bed while Jacob prepared breakfast. "You should rest another day," he told her. She looked around the room. "You lit all those lanterns for us?" she asked. Jacob shrugged. It was dark out there. Emily ran to the window. "Mama, look." Clara joined her and saw the glowing lanterns swaying gently in the morning breeze. Her eyes softened. "I've never seen a ranch shine like that." Jacob smiled slightly. "Didn't want you getting lost." Over breakfast, Clara explained their journey. They had been traveling west to start a new life after losing their home and land back east. But the road had been harder than she expected. The wagon accident had nearly ended everything. "You saved us," she said quietly. Jacob shook his head. "Emily saved you. She walked a long way." The little girl grinned shyly. The days that followed brought unexpected life back into the ranch house. Emily's laughter echoed through the halls. Clara helped with cooking and mending clothes while she recovered. Jacob found himself talking more than he had in months. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and crimson, Clara spoke softly. "You must get lonely out here." Jacob stared across the fields. "Sometimes." She looked toward the lantern hooks still hanging from the posts. "You lit a whole sky of lights for strangers." Jacob shrugged again. "Didn't feel right leaving folks in the dark." Clara smiled faintly. Weeks passed. Emily began helping with small chores, feeding chickens and gathering eggs. The ranch slowly filled with warmth again. One night, Emily tugged Jacob's sleeve. "Will you light the lanterns again sometime?" He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because they make the ranch look like hope." Jacob looked across the quiet fields. Then he stood and began lighting them one by one. Soon the ranch glowed again against the night prairie. Clara stepped onto the porch beside him. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes a single light is enough to guide someone home." Jacob looked at the woman and the little girl standing in the warm glow of lanterns. For the first time since Sarah's passing, the house no longer felt empty. The lights flickered gently in the wind, shining across the prairie like a promise that no traveler in the darkness would ever be alone again.